All right, hey, it's Colin. Wanted to show you guys my E30 again. Today what I want to talk about is kind of a buyer's guide and what to look for and what to keep in mind when you're looking to buy a BMW E30. So I'm going to show you what's going on. So the first step is, of course, if you're looking for a clean car, that's kind of something to keep in mind. But overall, you're going to want to look at the body. So obviously some things to keep in mind are, swirling's no big deal. You can clean that up. But if there's any other details like any missing paint, chips, or dents, you want to keep that in mind, especially for your purchase price when you're looking into the vehicle. So as you can see, I definitely have some dents here. Now, another thing too is if there are some dents and some chips in the paint, it's kind of a good thing because that's original then. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, has this car been repainted? What's going on? So depending on where you live, some people might repaint them and not be very honest about it. So my car is original paint, hasn't been painted at all. So I think it looks fantastic. All right, so once you found it, once you found a clean car, the most important thing is you're gonna look for rust, right? So these E30s, they tend to rust in a lot of different places. I'm gonna show you the exterior first and then some interior bits in a bit. My car luckily doesn't have any rust. So to start off with, some major rust spots are, of course, in the wheel wells. You're gonna wanna look in here. You're gonna wanna check, make sure that's all good. Make sure that there's no rust in this spot on the wheel well. Another thing is you're going to want to check on all corners to make sure that there's no rust. So as you can see, nothing here. There's some kind of paint wearing away here. This is okay because this can be painted. That's not actual rust. Going around another section is you're going to want to look underneath, and you're going to want to look and see if there's anything under here with the valance. Make sure there's nothing underneath. So pretty much these bumpers here, they come out, and you're gonna wanna check to make sure that there's no rust pretty much underneath here in this valance to make sure there's no holes. Now the next portion is, of course, make sure you check all wheel wells. Make sure you check here. Obviously it looks like it's looking pretty clean to me. Looking clean under here. Got a speck there, but not bad at all. Check this wheel well. Make sure it's not completely rusted underneath. Now, another great way is to take your camera, put it underneath, and be able to inspect. So as you can see, just make sure there's no rust underneath here. I mean, there's hardly anything on this car. This looks good in this corner. Then you're going to go around and you're going to want to look under here. You can take your phone here and put underneath. Make sure there's nothing in the rear. And then you're going to want to go around and you're going to want to check this corner here. And then you're also going to want to go over here and check this corner to make sure that there's nothing in the rockers for rust. All right, so on the BMW convertibles, it's also important to make sure that there's no rust going on in here, inside the mechanisms for the top. Obviously, there's some plastic pieces missing. That's pretty normal on these cars. So I have a seal. You're gonna also wanna keep in mind of seals on the car. These are potential spots where water can be getting in. So this seal will need to be replaced. There's a seal that's actually underneath here that will need to be replaced as well. As you can see, I put actually some paper towels in here to keep water out for now. I first had this car in the rain for the first time this past week, and I noticed where the water spots are. On another section here, what's important is going to the trunk here. Obviously, make sure everything's in good condition. You're going to want to look in the trunk, make sure there's no mold or any water. So first off, I noticed that there's potentially a leak coming from over here or coming in from the trunk latch in the hood. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that there's no rust. Obviously, I think there was some water going on here, so I cleaned it out, and I put paper towels in there for now to make sure that no rust starts. So the paper towel just gets wet and none of the other components. If you have a radio or battery, you're going to want to make sure that it doesn't get wet. So usually these corners are a good place to look to double check for rust. Same thing with over here on this corner to make sure that everything is good. So as you can see, there's a little bit of water going on here. So somewhere water was able to seep in. I don't know where, but based on what I can see, it's not too bad. And yeah, there's not much going on in the rust area for over here. So you're going to want to make sure, check those corners. You can pull up carpet, whatever you need to do before you purchase the vehicle. Make sure the owner's okay with it. So now what you've done so far is you've looked at the rust. You've also made sure the body's in good condition, good shape. Another thing too is you're going to want to make sure you check the suspension components, get underneath the car, take a look, make sure everything's solid, make sure it sounds good. So I'll get into that in a second. And then also besides that, obviously you want to make sure the interior is in good shape. So E30s are fairly simple. They have a basic seat package, which doesn't have these sport seats or any of these bolstering. What you're going to want to do really for best resale value is to make sure you get a car with these sport seats. I highly recommend it. These are designed by Recaro. They're very nice seats. You want to make sure that they're in good condition because these are expensive. These are, I mean, these can run anywhere from $600 to $1,000 almost a seat nowadays with these prices. You're also going to want to make sure that you don't have a cracked dash. That's extremely important. Cracked dashes are expensive to replace. The parts are expensive. The labor is expensive. You just don't want to do it. You could flock it, but you know, I recommend keeping it original. So besides that, you're going to want to make sure that you have a working odometer. If the car does not have a working odometer, that is a huge issue with mileage discrepancy, and people aren't really going to want to buy your car from you when you're ready to sell it. So make sure that it has a working odometer. If it doesn't, you're going to have to take a pretty hefty discount on that vehicle. Speedometer, make sure all the electronics are working. Make sure that the check panel is working and everything as well. Next thing is you're going to also want to make sure that the shifter is nice, has nice shifts in between gears, because bushings are a pain in the butt to do, but you can still do them. If they are worn out bushings, that could be a negotiating factor for when you're looking to purchase that vehicle. Another thing too, original factory radio is nice. Obviously I think it'd be cool to have another aftermarket radio in here, but those are some kind of key things to look for about the interior of a BMW E30. Besides looking for rust, obviously you want to make sure that there's nothing going on here when you open the car up. Next, what you want to do is you're going to open the hood, and we're going to take a look on the inside to see what's going on. Now that I've opened the hood, I'm going to mention a few things that you're going to want to keep in mind as well. So obviously some water points. If you're on a coupe or you're on a four-door sedan, you might get water that gets stuck in these little areas over here. You obviously don't want any rust damage starting or bubbling going on. So next up with the BMW E30 is you're going to make sure, okay, there's no rust going on underneath the hood. Make sure that everything's intact. Also, you want to make sure there's no rust starting in anything here, going on here. So another important part is you want to make sure the fuse box is all set. There's nothing missing fuse-wise. You want to make sure it's got good brake fluid, because if the car is low on brake fluid, there's a chance that the clutch master cylinder and slave cylinder could have burned out, and you don't want that risk, obviously, when you're looking to purchase the vehicle. A couple other things as well are you want to make sure that obviously the air filter is clean, make sure it's good. If you can change it, that's no big deal. On another portion of it, coming around here, these BMWs do leak oil. So something to keep in mind is with the valve cover gasket here, you're going to want to look to make sure that there is no valve cover gasket leak. So as you can see, it looks pretty clean on the around this corner here, around this bend of the engine. You want to make sure. If it looks like some fresh oil, it could be leaking valve cover gasket, and that could be an issue where you're going to want to probably affect some price going on there. So obviously that looks good. There's no leak. This valve cover gasket was actually redone when the guy redid actually the overhead gasket, and another portion of that was he did the timing belt. So make sure the timing belt's been done. Ask for service history. You want to make sure that you have any service history you can about the BMW E30 or BMW E28, whatever you're looking at. Now, another portion is you're going to want to make sure that it has coolant. Make sure it's holding coolant. These BMWs leak. You want to make sure you check the hoses for cracks, potential overheating issues. These BMWs suffer from that. Also with leaks, these will leak all over the place. The oil pan gasket has been done, but you can easily tell. Just look underneath the vehicle and you'll be able to see. Another portion of it is you're going to want to make sure, another portion of in the engine bay, of course, check the oil, make sure the coolant's at a good level. Another factor is you want to look at the belts. You want to make sure that these belts are in good condition. Make sure there's no cracks, right? You want to make sure, you want to check the water pump. You want to make sure that there's no leaks going on in this vehicle at all. You want to make sure that when you drive the vehicle, it holds temperature. It idles well. It sits in traffic well, right? You make sure you get up to speed. Make sure it doesn't overheat at all. Same thing with the oil. So you want to make sure that your oil's good. Make sure it's not leaking. Make sure the oil light's not on all the time because the car might be leaking. Make sure that's good. Now, old oil is okay. It will burn off. You will probably definitely smell oil because it is a BMW. Next thing that you're going to do is you're going to look underneath the car. You're going to make sure that there's no leaks going on underneath the car when you drive the vehicle. So obviously make sure you drive the vehicle, make sure it's cold when you start with it. Make sure there's no leaks going on. Obviously you're gonna have some air conditioning fluid dripping if you have air conditioning working. Also with a BMW convertible, you're gonna wanna make sure the top goes up and down without any issues. You wanna make sure that the top's in good condition because it is expensive to replace it. They do make automatic tops for the BMW E30s, but they do have mechanical issues. I'm unaware of really how to diagnose any of those or what to look for. So with a convertible top manual, pretty much you're going to want to make sure it's just in good condition, that there's no leaks. Another thing with these BMWs is you want to make sure that all the VIN numbers are matching for these panels, right? You want to make sure that the factory rivets are there to make sure that panels haven't been done, right? You want to make sure that that's been done correctly, that there's no frame damage. So if you're looking into a rebuilt car, you want to make sure visit the frame damage and see what that is. So obviously same on every door panel. So you got that, same over there. You're going to have it also in the vehicle inside here. So when you look in the vehicle, make sure it's got the factory rivets. Make sure it's got the VIN number that matches as well. So another important factor is you want to make sure that the radio works well. You want to make sure that all the speakers are working. I think mine on the left front tweeter, that is an option. So if you do get a car with tweeters, it's very cool. Not too common, but it is a factory option that you can upgrade. From there, obviously, you want to make sure that the radio works well, make sure that there's good sound. So yes, getting into the vehicle, what you're going to want to do is make sure that the car starts well, make sure all the electronics work. You also want to make sure there's no lights on. So obviously, here's some of the check lights. So getting into the car, a couple things. You're going to want to make sure that the emergency flashers work. Make sure that your turn signals work. Make sure that your brakes work. Make sure your brake lights work because common issue is getting leaks and having the brake lights not work. Make sure your turn signals work because these cars do have electronic issues. Obviously, you want to make sure that you get through gears. Obviously, make sure reverse works. You know, and make sure there's not a whole lot of play. Obviously, there's a little bit of play. So hopping into the BMW E30, so you're going to want to listen for noises as you're driving the car around to make sure that there's not any noises coming from the vehicle. There's actually noise from my right side rear, which could be something like a trailing arm or some type of adjustment that needs to be done. I also think my car needs brakes or rotors, so we'll see. So obviously make sure that the handbrake works, make sure all the gears work, and you're going to take the car for a drive, and you're just going to listen. And you're going to listen for noises. So here I go, I'm going to turn the car. And you want to listen for the noises. You can spin the car around. You want to listen for wheel bearing. Listen for any noises. And you want to get the car up to speed a little bit. Make sure you take it on the highway as well. Get it up to 70 miles an hour. Most of your driving is probably going to be highway driving. So I hear a little bit of rattling on my right side. My car is on coils, so it is a little stiff. Now the coupe and the sedan are going to handle differently. A BMW E30 convertible feels a bit heavier. There's a little bit more kind of wobble as you're hitting bumps. versus a coupe or a sedan is more solid, and more weight's kind of focused a little bit more higher up in the vehicle. So you can hear that noise there. You'll want to figure out any noises, and that is obviously something that you can take off in price when you are purchasing the vehicle. Make sure that there's no differential whine. Make sure there's no transmission noise. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more E30, E28, Lexus, and Porsche GT3 content. See you soon.